So you wanna know how to make procedural animations? Well, you're in luck, because I'm gonna show you a simple 4-step process that you can use to procedurally animate everything. And at the end I'm also gonna show you a little secret to make your procedural animations look a lot better. So step 1, we're gonna set up the model. So I have this model over here, and the very first thing you're gonna do is properly name all the parts in your model and then put all the parts that are going to be procedurally animated into a folder. So in my case I want the legs to be procedurally animated, so I put them in a folder called legs. Then you're going to select all the parts in this folder and set Lite property to false. This is so that the parts don't interfere with the other stuff. Next you're going to insert a part and name it humanoid root part and make it as the primary part of your model. Then you're going to add a humanoid into the model alongside animator in the humanoid, and finally you're gonna adjust the hip height property of the humanoid to some value you feel is right. Then we can move to the next step, and that's rigging your model. We do this so that our model can be animated. Now rigging can be done directly in Roblox Studio or in a software like Blender, but for this video I'm gonna be using Roblox. To do this we're gonna be using a plugin called RigEdit Lite, which is completely free, and I put a link in the description for you to download. Once you have the plugin downloaded, you're going to select your model, then go to the plugins tab, and then click on the RigEdit plugin and a window will pop up. Here you will see a value called step, and I'll explain what this does in a moment, but for now I recommend you set it to a value of 0.25. Now onto the rigging itself. The very first thing you're gonna do is select your humanoid root part, then hold Ctrl and select the main part of your model. So in my case it's a part called body, and then you press create joints. You can see there is a joint in the middle, and now we have to connect this joint with the legs. So again you're going to select your main part, then the leg you want to connect, and press create joints. Now you can see there is a line, which means these two parts are now connected. To connect the lower leg you are now going to select the upper leg first and then the lower leg and press create joints. Then you're going to repeat this process for every single part that you want to be animated. When you're done you're going to select these points and move them to a place where you want the part to rotate around. This is where the step value comes in. The step value represents how many stats you can move the joint, so a lower value means more precision. But this is something you're gonna have to play with to see what's the best value for you. Again you're going to adjust these joints for every single part. Once you're done, I recommend you open the animation editor and play around with the joints to see if everything works correctly. If so, we can move to the third step, which is setting up your IK controls. First, under the humanoid you're going to add one IK control instance for every leg. So in my case I have 4 legs, so I'm gonna add 4 IK controls. Next you're gonna create a folder under your model and name it IK targets, and then create as many parts in them as you have IK controls. I also recommend that you select all the parts, go to properties and uncheck Lite, Can Touch, Can Query, and check massless property. You can also make them smaller, and don't forget to name each part uniquely. Each IK control has 3 important properties: end effector, target, and chain root. End effector is the last part in a sequence, so in my case it's this part here because it's the last part of the leg. The chain root is the first part in a sequence, so in my case it's this part. And lastly, the target is a point to which this leg is going to move to. So click on the end effector property and select the last part of the leg. Then click on the target property and select the target part from the IK targets folder that corresponds to this leg. Then click on the chain root and select the first part of the leg. Again, you're gonna repeat this process for every single IK control instance. Then, just like the IK targets folder, you're gonna create a new folder with the same number of parts and name it raycast parts. Now these parts are gonna be using raycasting to check the distance between each leg. So I recommend you position them so that they are directly above each leg. Once positioned, you're gonna weld each of these parts to the humanoid root part, and also make sure that none of these parts in your model are anchored. The last thing we're gonna add is something called poles, which basically tells the IK control how each leg should bend. To do this, you're gonna add one attachment for every leg in the humanoid root part, and then you're gonna position each attachment to the direction you want the legs to bend. In my case, I want the legs to bend outwards and slightly upwards. Once you're done, we can move to the last step, and that's coding. Now, to make this easier, you can download my procedural animation module from the description that already has everything important in it, or if you want to code your own logic, then you can skip this part. But if you decided to use my module, then you're going to add a new script to your model, and here we're gonna do some basic setup. So first, you're gonna make a reference to IK targets folder, raycast parts folder, and IK controls. Then for each IK control, you're going to assign the pole property to the pole attachments we made earlier. Then you're going to require the module you just downloaded. Then you're gonna make raycast params with filter type set to exclude, and we're going to filter the whole model because we don't want it to interfere with the raycasting later. You can ignore this code if you want, I'm just making the IK targets and raycast parts invisible, and here I have some basic movement code so we can test the model. Now we are getting to the last section where we use the IK leg step function of the module. This function does all the hard work and makes each leg step when the model travels a certain distance. It also needs to be called for every leg and has a couple of arguments, and you can read what every parameter does in the module itself. Now that you've done all of this, then everything should work properly. However, it doesn't look good in every scenario, especially when walking on terrain. This is where the secret I was talking about comes in. The reason it doesn't look good is because his body only rotates left and right and not up and down. To fix this, you're gonna add a new attachment and align orientation to the humanoid root part. Then in the align orientation, set the mode to one attachment and the attachment 0 property to the attachment you've just created. And also set the max torque property to a really big number. Then you can pretty much just copy this code I have here. All this does is it rotates the model left and right and also up and down. Here the root variable is the primary part of your model and the target is the target part the model is moving to. Once you do this, the movement should look a lot better. Also, I wanna give a huge thanks to Rakil for becoming a Patreon, and if you'd like to see more about procedural animations, then I recommend watching this video, and see you next time.